Recording in progress.
Okay, I'm calling to order this special meeting of council. First, I'd like to acknowledge that this meeting is taking place on a traditional territory that's now is First Nation. First item on the agenda is adoption of the agenda. I'll just simply make the motion that the September 28th, 2022 council meeting agenda with additional information for item 3A be adopted as presented. Is there a seconder to that? Second by Councillor Gusselbreck. Any discussion on the agenda? Okay, hearing or seeing none, I will move to calling the question. All those in favor and opposed? Okay, no, that's carried unanimously. All right, so that takes us on to public and statutory hearings. First is for the District of Lantzville Phase Development Agreement, Clark Med Bylaw number 282, 2022. So just making note that notice of public hearing was posted September 14th, 2022. And basically, we had our second reading of the bylaw number 282 on September 7th. And at this point, we have received information up to noon as of today. So at this point, I'm going to move into my script. Okay, good evening, and on behalf of council, I'd like to welcome everybody watching via the live stream and participating in public hearing electronically and in the council chamber. This hearing is being conducted for the purpose of council to receive and consider input from all persons who believe that their interest in property is affected by the proposed bylaws. Under agenda item 3A, so District of Lantzville Phase Development Agreement, Clark Med Bylaw number 282, 2022, and item 3B, which is a District of Lantzville Phase Development Agreement, Foothills Development Bylaw number 309, 2022. If you wish to speak and have not yet registered, we ask that you register now, specifying the agenda item for which you are to speak. For those who are watching online via our live stream, please note that you can still join the Zoom webinar to speak to the proposed bylaws under item 3 on our tonight's agenda by going to lantzville.ca, clicking on the September 28th in the calendar, click view details, and follow the instructions to register in the Zoom webinar link provided. The purpose of these hearings is to provide an opportunity for council to receive and consider input from persons who believe their interests in property is affected by the proposed bylaws. It is not the opportunity to debate the merits of the proposed bylaws with either council members, staff, or members of the audience who may be opposed to your particular view, nor is it an opportunity for members of the public to ask questions about the proposed bylaws. Those in the gallery, please refrain from talking. Please turn off your cell phones, and clapping will not be permitted so everyone has the opportunity to hear and no one feels discouraged from speaking. As the chair, I ask that you restrict your comments to the proposed bylaws and be as brief and concise as possible. Those in the council chamber who wish to speak can register by signing the first opportunity speakers list for the applicable proposed bylaws for each agenda item located on the table at the entrance to the council chamber. Those who have pre-registered via Zoom will be given the first opportunity to speak, and those registered in the council chamber. All speakers lists will be managed by staff in person from the council chamber. Speakers participating via Zoom must remain muted until your name is called and muted again once you have concluded your remarks. Do not hang up or leave the webinar if you wish to speak again or for the hearing following. Remote participants, please use the Zoom raise hand feature to indicate that you would like to speak again. This function can be found in your webinar controls. If you are participating by telephone, the raise hand function can be activated by pressing *9 on your keypad. Speakers in the council chamber must sign the additional opportunity speakers list for each agenda item. I'm asking speakers to respect a 3-minute time limit for each turn in order that everyone who wishes to speak is able to do so. Immediately following the close of tonight's last public hearing, the special council meeting will continue with the agenda order so that council may consider third reading and adoption of each proposed bylaw. So we're specifically looking now at agenda item 3A, which refers to bylaw 282. I will now proceed to public hearing for agenda item 3A. This public hearing is being convened in order to consider proposed proposed District of Lantzville Phase Development Agreement, Clark Med Bylaw number 282, 2022. During this public hearing, any person in attendance who believes that their interest in property is affected by proposed bylaw 282 shall be given an opportunity to be heard on the matters contained in the bylaw. However, it is important that all who speak at this hearing restrict their remarks to the matters contained in the bylaws. Those of you who have registered to speak concerning the proposed bylaws should, at the appropriate time after your name is being called to speak, begin your comments by clearly stating your name and civic address. After this hearing has concluded, council may, without further notice, give whatever effect council believes proper to the representations made at this hearing. I will now call on the Director of Planning and Community Services, Mr. Frank Limshu, to speak to the proposed bylaw. So through to you, Director Limshu.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm just going to provide a bit of context with respect to the proposed bylaw. Can everybody hear me okay? Yes. So back in November 2nd of 2020, Council adopted OCP Amendment Bylaw number 224 and Zoning Amendment Bylaw 229. The purpose of those bylaws was to rezone the 3 subject parcels from future special area plan zone to Upper Lantzville Ware Road Special Area Plan. The purpose of the rezoning was to accommodate or facilitate the development of a 250-unit residential development, which includes a range of housing types, single-family, townhouses, duplexes, so forth. It also included a significant dedication of parks and public amenities. So I just want to clarify that the maximum build-out for the project is 250 units, not 280 units. The 280 was a typo in an earlier staff report. I would also like to indicate that the proposed bylaw for the phase development agreement does not in any way affect the zoning that was approved by council back in November of 2020. The bylaw also stipulates, the zoning bylaw also stipulates the maximum number of units that can be built on the sites. As a condition of adopting those bylaws, there was a Section 219 covenant registered on title. And within that Section 219 covenant, it outlined a series of amenities that the developer was obligated to provide as they worked their way through the project. Since then, the developer has applied to replace that existing development agreement, that Section 219 development agreement, with what's called a phase development agreement. The purpose of the application is basically to ensure that the zoning enacted by the OCP and the zoning bylaws that were adopted continue to apply on the subject lands for a period of 10 years. So effectively, the big difference between, one of the major differences between the existing Section 219 covenant and the phase development agreement is that it provides assurance to the developer and protects their development rights for a period of 10 years. With respect to the content of the phase development agreement, the phase development agreement still outlines the amenities package that was agreed to at the time of signing of the original Section 219 covenant. The amenities package has not changed in any way, shape, or form. The new phase development agreement that is before for council and is subject to this public hearing provides more clarity in terms of the timing for the provision of amenities throughout the project. In particular, the developer is required to provide a 2-hectare parcel to the district. They're required to provide $50,000 in cash contributions for amenities. They're also required to provide the parcel where the Alts Road Reservoir currently sits. Further to that, at the time that they move forward to develop, I'll call it the Clark side of the development, they're going to be required to extend the water and sewer service from Ware Road all the way through along the, I'll call the Clark Road corridor to Algier Road. The phase development agreement further outlines the various amenities that are to be provided as the developer works through the various stages of the development. So in short, I just wanted to make it clear that The proposed phase development agreement is not a land use bylaw. The land use discussion took place at the time that the property was rezoned previously. It does not change the number of units permitted on the property. Again, that's outlined in existing zoning bylaw. Effectively, the phase development agreement is replacing the existing Section 219 covenant that's currently registered on title. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. At this point, I will now call upon the applicant if they wish to speak to the phase development agreement for up to 10 minutes. So I believe I see the representative online. So again, if you can just state your name and civic address for the record, please.
Thank you, Mayor Swain, Council. It's Brian Henning. I reside at 523 Vancouver Avenue in Nanaimo. I'm here to listen to the public hearing, the community input, and hopefully answer questions as we move forward into the evening. But at this point, I can't really much add anything to what Director Limshu outlined. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. And at this point, I will call for the first time persons registered remotely and in the council chamber who believe that their interest in property is affected by proposed bylaw 282. Please wait for your name to be called, and when it is, please state your full name and civic address. Staff will proceed through the remote registrant list first and then through the gallery registrant list. When it is again your turn, staff will call your name and then you may give us your input regarding proposed bylaws or bylaw, and you'll have up to 3 minutes to speak. I will let speakers know when you have 30 seconds left and when your time is up. So at this point, through to Director Coates.
Yes, the first speaker is Jonathan Lerner. He will be followed by Vinayak Batsal and then Deirdre Love.
Okay, Mr. Lerner, if you can hear me, just state your name and address for the record, and then you have 3 minutes.
Sure. My name is Jonathan Lerner. I live at 8354 Bayview Park Drive. I'm speaking to the Clark Med Phase Development Agreement Bylaw number 282, 2022. I understand the importance of a phase development agreement and how it's a natural stage in the process, but I did have a couple concerns about this particular process here that we're seeing tonight. The first is section 2101, 21.01, which I wrote a letter to about the concern that this would expose the taxpayers to liability. I'm not a lawyer, but it seems clear to me that this is a concern. The letter I wrote was specifically for an agenda item for second reading, and I was told it would be held back and put on the public record for tonight. I did not receive an answer to my question in that letter, and I did note that it was not on the agenda tonight, although I think it was on part of the notice of public hearing, which seems an odd place. My second concern is that I wrote a letter to a councillor earlier today before the new deadline. I also do not see that on the public record. And so I'm concerned about the entire process. And I would hope that council would address section 2101 and determine whether or not this process is being followed properly, because it would be unfair to both the public and the developer if it was not. Thank you.
Okay, and through to Director Coates, if you can call upon the next speaker, please.
The next speaker is Vinayak Batsal.
Hi, my name is Dr. Vinayak Batsal. I live at 7174 Sebastian Road in Lantzville. The purpose of today's hearing is, as I understand it, to provide input on the phase development agreement that is to be signed between the district and the developer of the Clark Med lands. I find myself unable to actually provide substantive feedback because there are 4 versions of this PDA that have been supplied to us. There were 2 that were supplied at the time of the initial notice, and 2 further ones that were supplied in the agenda package for tonight's meeting. Each of these is slightly different. The page counts are different. The substantive information is different. Schedules that are blank in one are not blank in another. Some of the numbers appear to be different, and all of them seem to have a number of mistakes. I'm not really able to evaluate 4 different things without going through these line by line. I have no idea which of these 4 is actually going to be signed. So I will confine my comments to ones of a general nature. Let me start by saying that there seemed to be evidence of a certain amount of hurry and haste in putting these things together. So as far as I can tell from the documents, there's actually mistakes. The numbers don't match up. The unit counts are strange. Stuff is missing. It is very hard to believe that somebody's actually gone through this carefully and that council is actually aware of what it's signing. The most egregious example of this was alluded to by the previous speaker, which is section 20.01. This appears to be a poison pill in this district, which actually exposes the district to a large liability. What this clause says, if I'm interpreting it correctly, is that if this the bylaws that establish the zoning for these properties is overturned by a court, then the district will have to stand surety for the developer's costs with respect to amenities. What this means is that if the developer builds roads, sewers, anything along those lines, and the bylaw is overturned, the district is on the hook for the bill. It's very clear. What this is an insurance policy for the developer at the expense of the district and at the expense of taxpayers. It's extremely concerning to me that this is in a clause. This is in an agreement that the district contemplates signing. I also say that the possibility that
Sorry,
the court overturns this bylaw is not remote. There is a hearing on this very matter scheduled for November 1st to November 4th. The district's lawyers are aware of this. The developer's lawyers are aware of this. And I sincerely hope that council is also aware that 6 months from now, a judge at the BC Supreme Court could reverse
Okay,
these
that's
bylaws.
your time, Dr. Vatzel. You have additional opportunities to speak. Through to Director Coates.
The next speaker is Deirdre Love, and she will be followed by Ruth Abramson.
Hello. My name is Deirdre Love. I live at 6679 Elm Road. I wish to support this passing of this bylaw for the phased development plan for Clark and Med Drive for 3 reasons. The first one, my most personal reason, is for supporting the development of Clark Drive, is that it will bring the Lantzville sewer and water main within meters of our neighborhood. We see this as being our best chance of getting connected to these basic services in the foreseeable future. I live in the Wood Acres neighborhood, which is directly adjacent across the railway track from the Clark Drive properties. Our 36 homes are dependent on a 27-year-old sewage treatment plant. It is working now, but it is aging and it is very smelly. We are eager to join the municipal sewer system before our treatment plant ages out. We believe that water and sewer should be basic services for all Lantzville residents, and this is our best chance for getting it. The second reason I support this bylaw is that I believe this is the right way for Lantzville to be moving. We need to be building smaller homes with higher density, and it's the right thing to do. We have a housing crisis in our country. Prices are so high that most young families cannot afford to purchase a home or even rent one. We must build more affordable housing, and that means making better use of the land that we have. This means smaller homes and more density. We do need to do our part to help solve this problem. And finally, this development has already received approval. So to not pass the PDA today, I worry it will open the door to the undoing of the council's hard work thus far. I think there are delay tactics happening and that they should not be heeded. Lantzville must grow in order to move into the future. Without this type of growth, our community will not continue to be viable. We need more housing options, more residents, and more businesses to build our tax base so we can build our community and continue to work on providing basic needs like sewer and water.
You have 30 seconds.
Thank you very much. I'm done.
Okay. And through to staff, any additional remotely
Ruth
registered?
Abramson,
Okay, yes.
followed by James Dale.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Just name and address for the record, please.
Ruth Abramson, 7174 Sebastian Road. I am not against sustainable development or development at all in Lantzville, but I am truly concerned that if we're going to be doing it, we need to have accurate, clear, correct information to make those decisions. So, as others have noted, there have been multiple versions of the PDA presented to the public, 2 at the time of the initial notice of hearing and 2 more in the agenda package. Each of these versions appears to have mistakes. For example, DCCs appear to have been calculated incorrectly. The amenity packages are described differently in different places, and the PSR information is included in some versions, but not others. And when I say the DCCs appear to have been calculated incorrectly, I can say that the person who actually looked at this is a UBC mathematician, so it's not coming out of the blue from some layperson. As a member of the public, it is impossible to know which of the 4 versions is the final one that will actually be adopted and which one is intended to be the subject of public input. And I urge you to provide the public with clear information so that we can provide appropriate input under the requirements of the Local Government Act. This is not a delay tactic. This is transparency and proper information. Also, with the Clark Med development being challenged in the Supreme Court of BC, with a hearing scheduled just 1 month away from today's date, it's very premature to adopt a PDA containing that clause, which appears to be basically an insurance policy for the developer, which puts the taxpayers and the district at risk to pay costs when it's only a month away. So this clause is deeply unpopular with residents and taxpayers, and it's highly unusual for a municipality to take such a risk while there's a challenge in court. And so as members of this community, I just want to ask Mayor and Council if you're really willing to bear the weight of the consequences of this proposal being adopted, regardless of whether or not you're on council in the future. Thank you.
Okay, through to Director Coates. Is that exhaust the remotely registered?
No, it has not.
Sorry, anyways, yes, Mr. Dale.
Yes, we have James Dale, followed by John Colson.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hey, this is James Dale, 7730 Clark Drive. Actually, I just want to start by just thanking each of the people on the council for the time you've dedicated over the last 4 years of being on council. So start with that. This is my opinion on the 3rd reading of Bylaw 282. I think it's a mistake and not the right action to vote on this PDA with less than 1 month of this council being in as a group in operation. I think it'd be prudent and the right thing to do to let the new council, whoever that might be, to make this vote that will ultimately lock Lantzville into an agreement over the next decade. If this current council was just starting out and working with the stakeholders moving forward, it would make sense to vote on this. But the incoming council should be involved in this process so they can have input into details of this PDA versus an outgoing council. We're in an election period. There's a lot of stuff coming at people right now. We're about to choose our next leaders, and Lantzville's about to have their say in who should be on council. So I ask, what's the rush to this now? But let the community dictate the next council and their mandates, and then let them look at this PDA and pass it if they choose to make any details or change the PDA. I do know it is the right for this council to do this vote, but from the outside, it feels like it's being pushed through, and then there's errors, it seems, when I kind of looked at it. I ask you to wait and allow the new council to determine how the future long-term contracts are set up. Thank you.
Okay, and the next remotely registered.
Next speaker is John Colson.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Just name and address for the record, please.
Thank you. It's John Colson, 7835 Superior Road, Lantzville. I'm going to carry on or along the lines of a point that Dr. Vatzel had started with pertaining to where the district currently is with the judicial review and one of the clauses that's in the draft PDA. So the District of Lantzville is currently a party in a judicial review currently before the Supreme Court of British Columbia. And this judicial review has asked the courts to review the merits of the Clark Med zoning bylaw and the OCP amendment that were adopted in November 2020. As previously stated, a hearing on these merits has been set for November 1st to 4th this year. I trust that District of Lantzville staff have made council aware of this fact, as it does have a great bearing in the implications to Lantzville. Unfortunately, though, in reviewing the content for this public hearing, no such language appeared in the staff report dated September 7th, so I can only assume that staff have made council aware of this fact. So in regards to clause 21.01 that others have referenced, I won't interpret it any further, but you've all read it. The District of Lantzville is currently a party in an upcoming judicial review. The District of Lantzville has also entered this clause into a pending PDA, which now stands before the public for input and council consideration. This clause essentially states that Lantzville taxpayers will cover any costs incurred by the developer to supply amenities prior to subdivision approval if the zoning amendment bylaw is overturned by the courts. The presence of this clause is wonderful protection for the developer. The presence of this clause is most disturbing for Lantzville residents, who I believe interests are flagrantly ignored by the presence of such a clause. I think it not unreasonable that a person would assume that the most risk-averse path for the District of Lantzville, and by that I mean the residents and taxpayers of the District of Lantzville, would be to wait for the court to rule on the merits of the judicial review process. If a developer wants to proceed with their project with the judicial review unresolved, then they should bear the risk of that decision, not the residents of Lantzville. This council is not willing to wait for the court's decision regarding the judicial review. If the council is not willing to wait for the court's decision regarding the judicial review, at the least, this clause should be removed from the PDA prior to adoption. Thank you.
All right, and through to Deputy Director Richardson, I'll ask you to call upon the next speaker. I think we're into in-chamber participants now.
So we have Roger Green.
And you just have to press the little button, make it go red, which is kind of counterintuitive. Red usually means stop. And just name and address for the record, please.
Thank you, Your Worship and members of council. My name is Roger Green. I live at 6625 David Place in Lantzville. I am here to give my personal support to Bylaw 282-22 without any reservation. This horse has been in the stable for far too long. It's time to open the door. I'm also here as president of the Woodacres Strata Council. Woodacres was developed in the 1990s on David Place, Elm Road, and Hayes Place. The 37 houses are connected to a community sewer and a treatment plant to manage the wastewater. The sole remit of the 6-member council is to oversee the operation of the treatment plant. The council is unanimous in seeing the need for Woodacres houses to be connected to a municipal sewer system. The treatment plant at Woodacres is now 27 years old and uses a technology that is even older. Although still operating within the specifications set by the Ministry of the Environment, these may change, necessitating expensive upgrades. It also causes a public nuisance. Despite proper operation, a number of Woodacres houses experience the unpleasant odour of sewage. In the development of Clark Drive, we see the opportunity to establish a municipal sewer connection to Woodacres, as it is my understanding that the sewer and water will be run from Clark Drive West to Clark Drive East, with a spur extending to the edge of the railway line, and this spur will be within 60 metres of our sewage system, and it's 80 metres from Hayes Place. It is the opinion of the Woodacres Strata Council, the 6 members of the Woodacres Strata Council, that it is in our best interests for this development to proceed without delay, and to that end we support Bylaw 282-22. Thank you.
Next speaker is Scott Mack, followed by Hans Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. My name is Scott Mack, and I reside at 6670 Elm Road in Lantzville. While I am a land use planning and development consultant, I do want to be clear that I don't have any professional association with this project. I'm here speaking to you tonight as a resident of Lantzville and as vice president of the Woodacres Strata Council, with regard, of course, to the PDA for Clark Med. For the most part, I want to reiterate and support the comments that Roger just made. However, I do have a few additional comments to make that speak to some of the bigger picture issues at play here. I do hope that it is clear to council that this matter is no longer about land use. That question was answered with the rezoning application that was approved by council in 2020. This process today is about certainty, clarity, and about charting a path forward to ensure that Lantzville receives the amenities and improvements at various stages as this project is built out. One of the most important benefits of this project is opportunity, specifically for the 200 existing residential properties located in the general vicinity of the Clark Drive properties. This includes Woodacres, Arbutus Crescent, portions of Alds Road, Alger Road, Clark Drive East, and Blackjack Crescent. These 200 properties, likely some 500 some odd residents, currently have no municipal water or sewer service. We are all on wells and on private conventional septic fields or small treatment systems, as is the case with Woodacres. All of these properties are located within both the water and sewer service areas and have been identified by the district as priority areas for extension of municipal services. It is appalling, quite frankly, that in this day and age that there are families in Canada who are unable, including in Lantzville, who are unable to turn on the tap in their house and have safe drinking water. Yet here we are. My family is fortunate that we have a good well, but many of our neighbors are not so fortunate. It is understood, however, that putting pipes in the ground is not cheap. We all acknowledge that extending municipal services presents both a significant technical as well as a financial challenge for local governments. Extending these works at taxpayer expense or entirely through a local area service petition is costly, and grant applications for federal or provincial funds are hit and miss at best. At this point, without some significant intervention, getting municipal water and sewer to these areas is not feasible. That's where Clark Med comes into play. As it relates to the Clark Drive portion of this project, thank you. This development will bring with it nearly 1.2 kilometers of new water main and 1.2 kilometers of sewer main. Literally millions of dollars worth of infrastructure, 100% paid for by the developer. While that infrastructure will obviously service the new development, it will also put these services literally on the doorstep of all these surrounding areas as well. At this point, the prospect of a local area service to further extend this infrastructure into these areas becomes much more feasible. I do have a few additional comments, but I'll wait until I have another opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. You can call upon the next speaker, please.
Next speaker is Hans Larson, followed by Rochelle Mundell.
Hans Larson, 7010 Owen Road. My spouse and I strongly oppose Council giving District of Lantzville Phase Development Agreement, Clark Med, Bylaw number 282, 2022, third reading for the following reasons. It is highly irresponsible and unusual for a council to contemplate giving a phased development agreement bylaw third reading mere weeks before a new council will be elected. Add to this fact that all 4 versions of the PDA, that's the phased development agreement, included in the notice of public hearing and agenda package contain clause 21.01, which ties the hands of 3 future councils but won't affect the current council. In doing so, this council will put residents, that is taxpayers, in a significant financial or legal jeopardy, possibly in the amount of hundreds of thousands of dollars. And to add insult to injury, they would also be on the hook for any legal fees involved with clause 21.01 under section 21 of the agreement, no recovery of amenities. It reminds me of what the mergers and acquisitions sector referred to as a poison pill. As there is currently an active BC Supreme Court case for a judicial review on the subject of the validity of the adopted Clark Med, OCP, and zoning amendment bylaws, initiated by a community-concerned resident group, the probability that clause 21.01 will be invoked, it is not 0. We see this as a very cynical approach to local government or governance, especially since a similar clause is not included in the Foothills Phased Development Agreement. The fact that these 2 PDAs are being taken to public hearing on the same night with a combined agenda of 305 pages almost guarantees that one of them will be given short shrift. In the current situation, that would be the Foothills. Such a significant decision on a legal agreement should be made by the council that will have to live with the consequences. As is often the case, it has been very difficult and confusing trying to sort out which of the 4 copies of the phased development agreement to review. The 2 included with the notice of public hearing are identical and match the second one included with the September 28th agenda package. It is very time-consuming, frustrating, and stressful to try to deal with such a situation. I'll hold my comments to my second round of opportunity. Thank you.
Okay, I'll call upon the next speaker, please.
That would be Rochelle Mundell, followed by Joan Jones.
Rochelle Mundell, 6711 Alger Road. I request that you reject the Clark Med PDA. There are still so many questions about what is going on. There's frustration in our neighborhood about the amenities, the roadways, the lack of traffic calming. And something that's brought up tonight and has been identified by staff as an error has been very concerning for the neighborhood. The numbers in the staff reports showing, the first one showing on page 117 that this development was at 280. That, again, we all recall that that number was reduced to 250 before being approved. And now it was changed on this last version. This is confusing for those of us who are following this process. My neighbors assume this means that the developer is trying to sneak through higher density with staff support. Why have the numbers changed? These are all reasons why residents have lost confidence and are upset. The residents in our neighborhood express that they are feeling cheated and do not trust council or staff. I noticed one missing Schedule L, as has been also identified by others tonight in the preliminary subdivision review. Within some of the paperwork in the first edition, and then it appears in a next edition. There have been changes in the lot numbering system from document to document. It's really hard to follow. The amenities on the Med property are different in one PDA document and then listed, there's 2 in one and then 3 in the other. So which one's correct? This is very, very confusing and troublesome. Why would the district agree to that legal clause? It puts the district, the taxpayers, us on the hook for the costs if that judicial review is overturned, which again, as has been said tonight, is scheduled in a month's time. So why would they agree to that? It seems reckless to put the taxpayers on the hook. There are so many errors and changes that it's hard to determine the accuracy of these documents. How are residents expected to be able to follow these and make informed decisions whether to support this or not? At the all candidates meeting that we had last weekend, we heard loud and clear that many residents in the Clark neighborhood are angry with this PDA and the public hearing happening at this time. The election is only weeks away and decisions like this should not be considered by this council.
30 seconds.
I would take this time to consider carefully and learn from the past. What might be the outcome of passing this agreement with all of the errors noted and that have been directly pointed out to you? Please do not pass this PDA, send it back for revisions and to the next council where it can be given the attention and consideration it deserves. Thank you.
Okay, and to the next speaker, please.
Next speaker is Joan Jones, followed by Brian Blood.
And you're gonna have to press the button too, please.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. My name is Joan Jones. I live at 7255 Ellesmere Drive. I do support development when done right and when it respects the public process. We've heard many concerns about this tonight. The Clark Med public process is flawed. The PDA includes a site plan, but nowhere does it state the number of units that will be built. At least I could not find such number. Before COVID, Council approved 250 units for Clark Med. However, another document on the district website, a staff report, cites 280 units for Clark Med. Surely this is incorrect, false information. The staff report must be corrected, the public process redone. This is not the first such incident, and many other concerns have been expressed tonight. Residents are asking if the public process can be trusted. Residents have lost confidence in this council. 3 are not running for re-election. Is it ethical for them to vote today? This is an important decision, one I believe should be considered by the new council elected 17 days from today. Thank you.
Next speaker, Brian Blood.
Your Worship and Council, my name is Brian Blood, 7075 Gillette Road. Residents can't really give informed opinions to council when the single most important issues are deliberately hidden from them and you. More important, in my opinion, than the also fuzzy human density proposed is the treatment of drainage and environmental concerns. The details are regulated by district policy and bylaws that only come into play at later phases of the development regulatory process. Imagine the outcry if density was treated that way. We are expected to give council our opinions and advice on approval of a development process which will be subject to existing regulations which are grossly ill-prepared, not just for the existing needs of environmental values and public safety, but for the unpredictable future condition of weather patterns and climate change, which, if you hadn't noticed, just gave us the longest and most destructive rainy season in our history, followed since mid-July by a rainless 2.5 months. If approved, this process will negatively impact not just current residents of Lantzville, but future residents, salmon, and all the flora and fauna associated with wetlands, Bloods Creek, the beaches, and the aquatic health of the Salish Sea. The Med part of Clark Med, as proposed, is undevelopable without a major engineered storm sewer. Where will that go? The same developer proposed a major central storm sewer down where Colette and Jack's to the beach. It was to start across the highway, a stone's throw from this development. It is unsupportable that the primary issues are put in a future regulatory limbo while residents are expected to give their opinions now. It is literally impossible for residents or this council to make a truly informed decision now. We don't have the vital information and we don't have the regulatory tools. Stop it.
Okay, through to Director Coates.
That's the end of speakers for the second round. And perhaps I should clarify, there was an earlier speaker who spoke or suggested there was correspondence missing from the package.
yeah.
And so I handed out a letter that we just received by email from a member of council. So to clarify, the one letter that was referred to is in the package. It's on page 121 of the agenda. That was the letter for second reading, September 7th. Then there's a public hearing notice was published. That was published September 14th and 21st. And it said to write to district@lantzville.ca if anybody had any comments. There was nothing received from that speaker. However, this morning at 22:11, a member of council received a letter, and they have just forwarded that to us, and that's what I've handed out. I also put a copy over on the table. It's not in green, it's in white, so it should stand out for anyone. And now we'll go to see, we've got 2 hands up for online.
All right, so at this point, I will be calling for a second time for persons registered remotely and in council chamber who have new information to present and wish to speak again. If you wish to speak again via Zoom, please use the Zoom raise hand feature to indicate that you would like to speak. This function can be found in your webinar controls. If you are participating via telephone, the raise hand function can be activated by pressing *9 on your keypad. If you're in the council chambers and wish to speak again, please sign the second speaker's opportunity list for bylaw 282 located on the table at the entrance of the council chamber. So through to Director Coates, I'll get you to call upon the remotely
Yes,
registered.
the first remote speaker for second round is Vinayak Vatsal.
Hello, it's Vinayak Vatsal, 7174 Sebastian Road again. I just want to finish what I was saying the last time. I completely understand the imperatives for doing this development, especially the requests for water and sewer, because I spent almost a year with a porta potty and bottled water when my sewer and well failed. So I understand how important this development is to my fellow residents. But the fact of the matter is the future of this development is not something that is any longer in the hands of this council or anybody in this room. It will be decided one way or the other by the judge who hears a petition between November 1 and November 4th. And sometime after November 4th, whether it's 6 weeks, 6 months, or a year, that judge, whoever they are, will hand down a ruling which will send this thing quite possibly back to the beginning and stick the district with an enormous bill for whatever cost the developer has incurred. That is the question before you. Whether or not you think this development is a good thing or a bad thing, I put to you, is not the point right now. The point is how to mitigate the risk to the district, its finances, and the taxpayers who will be left holding the bag of the possibility that this thing will be sent back to the beginning by a judge. The amounts of money involved are not small. We're talking about roads, sewers, whatever it is, for 280 units. The district does not have the money to do this, but that is what it is contracting to do if this PDA is passed as it appears to be presented to the public. And that is what you as members of council have to decide. Are you willing to put the finances of Lantzville at risk and bet it all on whether some judge has had burnt toast for breakfast or not, or makes a ruling that you like or not? That's the point here. I would put it to you that the responsible decision and the only decision that is compatible with your duty to the taxpayers of Lantzville is to punt on this until the court has handed down a verdict. At that point, it will be possible to make the right decision. And if you insist on making the decision now, which I do not support in any way, shape, or form, take that clause out, because it is a huge and unacceptable risk to everybody in Lantzville. And it doesn't matter whether you're pro-development, anti-development, or anything else. It is an enormous amount of money that the district will have to pay. And there's no reason why responsible council should subject the taxpayers of Lantzville to that degree of risk. You're in the business of providing sewer and water and services to the community, not writing insurance policies for developers. Thank you.
Okay, through to Director Coates, if you can call upon the next remotely registered person.
The next remotely registered speaker is John Colson.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. John Colson, 7835 Superior Road. The judicial review process that's been referenced and is scheduled to be before the courts in approximately 4 weeks came about because a group of residents had concern about the process leading up to the adoption of the zoning and OCP amendment bylaws in November 2020. So they've asked the courts to review these errors and make a determination about the validity of council in adopting the bylaws with those errors in place. Tonight, some fellow residents have expressed concerns about process and errors surrounding this PDA process before the public and council tonight. So further to these errors with the PDA, I would like to briefly reference the council procedure bylaw. Section 9 of the procedure bylaw speaks to electronic attendance at meetings. A meeting is defined by item 9B, and it says the meeting is a regular or special meeting and is not an inaugural meeting of council. So this meeting tonight was announced, excuse me, was announced as a special meeting. Section 9.3 states no more than one member of council at any one time may participate at a council meeting electronically. So tonight at the outset of the meeting, we had Councillor Wilson and Councillor Proctor participating in this meeting. Thus, I would deem that to be a violation of Section 9.3 of Council's own procedure bylaw. Further to this point, Section 9.4 says a member may not participate by electronic means for more than 2 consecutive council meetings. So if indeed that Councillor Proctor still is in attendance at this meeting, on September 7th, 2022, Councillor Proctor attended the meeting virtually. On September 21st, 2022, Councillor Proctor attended the meeting virtually. And here tonight, at least at the outset, Councillor Proctor was in attendance virtually. So that's a violation of Section 9.4 of the procedure bylaw. So tonight alone, outside of any of the matters surrounding the PDA specifically, we see staff and council making procedural errors, potentially impacting the validity of this public hearing process. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Okay, Director Coates, if you can call upon the next person, please.
Next speaker is Jonathan Lerner.
Thank you. Can you hear me well?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. My name is Jonathan Lerner. My address is 8354 Bayview Park Drive. As others have stated, and I've stated before, there's nothing wrong with well-planned, responsible, and sustainable development. And I know that as someone relying on well and septic systems and worried about wildfires and water shortages in my neighborhood, I fully understand the benefits of municipal water and sewer for residents. Those are major issues for many in Lantzville, and development can be part of the solution, as can this one. But there's also a responsibility of council not to risk burdening the taxpayers of Lantzville with millions of dollars in liability. And therefore, with the pending legal review that has been mentioned, I urge council to remove clause 21.01. Additionally, as others have noted, that a new council is set to be sworn in approximately 1 month. In fact, voting starts in 1 week. Is it fair to the voters of Lantzville and the next council to risk that liability and make the decision here? Most other councils in municipalities around the province have put a hold on major decisions such as phase development agreements out of respect for the voters who are electing their next council. It's up to you tonight to determine what is ethical and your level of respect for the voters. Thank you.
Any remotely registered?
Yes, we have Sean Riley.
Okay. Just added. Okay. So, Mr. Riley, if you can just state your name and address for the record, please.
Certainly. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Sean Riley, 6711 Algier Road. Just got in from hockey. Just wanted to say that I'm not in support of the PDA, and I hope council rejects the third reading. Various reasons, as stated by other members of the public. I have concerns with that clause 2101 and the liability issues. Just took a quick glance. I know I'm not supposed to speak about the foothills, but I did see in their PDA that there's a clause in their 13.1b that as each subdivision comes through, the DCCs will be reflective of the current DCC bylaw, versus in the Clark Med application, it seems that the DCCs are set throughout all phases of the bylaw. So it's a big one there. And again, just, is this really going to benefit the citizens of Lantzville, or is it benefiting the developer? Thank you.
Okay, any additional remotely registered? Okay, so
Not with their hands up, I think that's it.
I think we're good. So if you want to call on the in-person?
Yes.
Thank you.
And just quickly, should also clarify that the speaker who spoke about offenses against the procedure bylaw is not looking at a current version of the procedure bylaw. The one on the website is current. It was amended last year, and it allows everything that's happening. So now in the house, in the chambers, the first speaker is Hans Larson, followed by Scott Mack.
Hans Larson, 7010 Owen Road. Just to reiterate, my spouse and I strongly oppose council giving District of Lantzville Phase Development Agreement Bylaw number 282, 2022, third reading. Carrying on from my previous comments, perhaps in the rush to push this through, there are also a number of issues and concerns with the defining documents provided. Although I don't know why there are two identical copies of the Phase Development Agreement, PDA, in the Notice of Public Hearing, and two different copies of the PDA in tonight's agenda package, only one of them, the second one in the agenda package, actually contains the Schedule L, the Preliminary Subdivision Review, PSR, for the Clark and Med properties. The Clark Drive property refers to an 87 parcel conventional subdivision, and the relevant DCCs have been calculated based on 87 parcels. However, I'm unable to find a parcel 87 on Schedule 1, the proposed plan of subdivision of the PSR. I have, however, found two parcel 86s. These parcels are both referenced in Section 30 of the Clark Med PSR. With respect to the ultimate treatment of DCCs, I'm also not clear on how DCCs for the larger parcels, which are currently being treated as a single parcel for calculation of the DCCs, will be treated when the number of dwelling units is verified or determined. One drawing, PDA Schedule E, has the water and sewer lines being extended to the corner of Clark Drive and Alger, while another, PSR Plan of Subdivision, has them extended around the corner on Alger Road to the nearest boundary of the first existing property. I have been unable to determine what Area C referenced in the Clark Drive PSR, page 10 or page 43 of the agenda, refers to. The Med property PSR refers to an 82 parcel conventional subdivision, but the relevant development cost charges have been calculated based on 81 parcels. And I am unable to find a parcel 82 on Schedule 1, the proposed plan of subdivision of the PSR. In the Med PSR, one of the streets is referred to variably as Green Crescent and Green Road. Finally, the reference to Schedule D of Attachment 2 in the September 7th staff report is incorrect. It should be either J or K. Thank you for seriously considering our input on this very important matter. Thank you.
Okay, and the next speaker, please.
Next speaker is Scott Mack.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Scott Mack, 6670 Elm Road. I just had a few additional comments that I wanted to make to finish off what I had stated earlier. While I noted previously the issues regarding clean drinking water, I did also want to touch quickly on the sewer issue as well. The 200 properties that live in the vicinity of this, of the Clark Drive portion of this property, as previously noticed, all currently put their sewage effluent directly back into the ground. The entirety of this area flows towards Blood Creek, arguably the most important and environmentally sensitive and fish-bearing watercourse in the district. Therefore, putting these 200 properties on municipal sewer over the course of time undeniably provides an environmental benefit as well for the community and for Bloods Creek. Ultimately, we believe that it is Council's responsibility to pursue every avenue that allows for these important services to be extended to existing residents. This project is that avenue for the residents in this area. Without these lands being developed, it is highly unlikely that we will ever have an opportunity to connect to municipal services. As a result, we encourage Council to vote to adopt the phased development agreement, not only for the developer, but also to the significant benefit of the 500 residents that live in the vicinity of this area as well. I did, if I can, just quickly wanted to make a couple of additional comments based on some of the concerns I've heard tonight. With regard to having worked in the planning and development field for many years, with regard to the legal concerns, I would hope that Council, I'm operating under the assumption that the phased development agreement was drafted in consultation with the district's lawyers, who, of course, their only job is to protect the district's interests. And therefore, I would hope that the comments from, the legal commentary from residents is taken in context of the legal advice that would have been provided by the professionals that Council relies on. Secondly, this notion that somehow Council doesn't have the ethical authority to make a decision on this is, quite frankly, insulting to the 5 current members of Council. Each of you were elected in 2018 for a 4-year term. That term does not expire until the new Council is sworn in. And so the suggestion that somehow the current Council should stop making decisions on issues that are of concern to some residents is inappropriate and inaccurate. And I hope Council will, as is their responsibility, continue to make decisions until their term expires.
Okay, next speaker, please. That's it? Okay. All right, so at this point, I will call for a third time for persons registered remotely who have new information to present and wish to speak again. If you wish to speak remotely, use the Zoom raise hand feature. This feature can be found in your webinar controls. If you're participating via telephone, the raise hand function can be activated by pressing *9 on your keypad. If you're in the council chamber and wish to speak again, please sign the third speaker's opportunity list for Bylaw 282, located on the table at the entrance of the council chamber. Before I close this hearing, I will ask if there's anyone else who is not registered remotely or in the council chamber who wishes to speak regarding Bylaw 282 that you register now. So I will allow for a brief pause. So it looks like our screen's lit up with 4 hands. Okay. And then again, for persons that are in person in council chamber, if you wish to speak for a third time, please sign that list. Okay, so we'll proceed ahead with the remotely registered participants.
And
So
that
through
would
to you,
be
Director
Vinayak
Coates.
Batzel.
Sorry, that was left over from last time. I don't have anything further to add.
Okay, so just
Okay.
name and address for the record, please.
Vinayak Vatsal, 7174 Sebastian Road. I think I've said everything I wanted to say at this point. Thank you.
Okay. And we'll go to the next person,
Next
please.
speaker is Ruth Abramson.
Oh, hand is down. Okay, so we'll go to the
Next
next.
speaker.
Sorry, yeah, I just couldn't get off mute there. Ruth Abramson, 7174 Sebastian Road. So I'm thinking that what I'd like is, I'm not saying do not adopt a PDA on Clark Med. I'm saying please do not adopt this particular one. Out of respect for the voters and the democratic process, most other councils across BC have put a hold on decision-making with only 1 week to go before voting can start. And with this particular PDA, I mean, obviously sewage and water is extremely important. But with this particular PDA, with its legal risks, its cost risks, and its information that is unclear and inaccurate and perhaps incorrect, again, I wonder about the potential breaches to the Local Government Act that we've seen before. And I think that what residents are really looking for is accountable, fair, transparent government that meets the requirements of the Local Government Act. We're not saying don't do development, but this particular PDA it's not the time to adopt it. Thank you.
Okay, next speaker, please.
That would be John Colson.
There, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
John Colson, 7835 Superior Road. So further to my comments on the procedure bylaw, and then the corporate administrator speaking to the errors I was making, I think this is a nice example of some of the procedure issues that we're into. So when I go to the district website, so further to the procedure bylaw, when I go to the district website and type procedure bylaw, it takes me to a landing page that says procedure bylaw number 141, and there's a link on that page. The link references procedure bylaw number 141, 2020. I click on it, I get a procedure bylaw in PDF form. It says it was adopted April 27th, 2020. That's what I have available. Sorry, that's what I have available to me as a resident. If there is indeed a new procedure bylaw that's been adopted, I can't find it. I don't know where it is. So to some of these other points about the procedural missteps, others have spoken to this not being about development, density numbers, or whether or not a PDA should be passed. The concern is around some of the missteps, potential missteps around proper process. The fact that there was 4 different versions of a PDA presented to the public for contemplation tonight. How is a member of the public supposed to know what one is actually being considered and adopted? You can't. I don't even know how you as a counselor would figure that out without asking staff. The ones that were presented in the notice were the same. 2 versions of it though. The 2 that were presented in the agenda, each was different. That's confusing. That's a problem. It needs to be fixed. Further to the announcement, to kind of carry on with some of the missteps. The announcement that was published and is currently available on the district website, pages 34 and 36. No. 34 and 35, apologies, of that announcement contain content for zoning bylaw number 180, which was on Dickinson Road, which was considered by council, 6 months, 12 months ago. So I'm not trying to pick on people. We're just trying to demonstrate there's been some missteps. Please address them, please fix them, and make sure that whatever decisions you're making going forward are sound, lawful, and so forth. Thank you.
Okay, next speaker, please.
That would be Sean Riley.
Mr. Riley, if you can hear us, and just unmute.
Sorry about that. I did not mean to have my hand up.
Not a problem. So we'll go to the
next speaker is Brian Henning.
And again, just name and address for the record, please.
Brian Hanning, I'm 523 Vancouver Avenue. As you know, I'm here as the applicant for Lantzville projects. I'm just listening to the concerns on 2101, the judicial review. I just want to give some context to that. This PDA is different from the Section 219 covenant in that significant amenities must be provided at commencement of construction, not completion of construction. So our concern is that we provide significant, like 2 hectares of valuable land, the public works yard land, and if we complete the land is given, the construction complete, but the district is not in a position to approve it, and we have no approvals, we just thought it was reasonable that if nothing had happened, then the land should be given back to us. That's the clause. The district lawyer prepared this document and all the clauses within it. We discussed them at length, but it was written by the district's lawyer. I just wanted to make clear why that clause was there. I think it's fair and reasonable. Thanks.
Okay, thank you for that. And any additional remotely registered? Well, I think Dr. Vatzel passed, but I don't know. Sorry?
I think the two remaining ones that have their hands up, they already spoke or passed in this round.
Well, the one.
I actually did have something, actually. I would like to say that if it's possible.
pass on the third,
something occurs to me.
Okay, go ahead. If you can just start your name and address. State your name and address.
It's Vinayak Vatsal. I just wanted, one thing occurred to me that maybe I should mention before I sign off here, is that, and it's that the purpose of a PDA is to provide certainty for the developer and for the district. But this one does not actually do that. The reason being that, in point of fact, a judge could send this whole thing back to the beginning. And that, to me, is the key point, is that sometime a month from now, this process goes into a world where it's not in anybody's hands. And I just do not see any justification for taking on that risk at this point. And I understand what Mr. Henning said about returning the lands that were signed over by covenant prior to adoption of the zoning. I'm well aware of that, but that's not actually what 21.01 says. It does not say these lands and this covenant will be struck. It says any amenities will be made good, which means any works done on water, any works done on sewer, anything else in the way of infrastructure contribution that might be considered as an amenity is something that would be payable by the district and its taxpayers to the developer. And that is where my concern is. That clause is way too broad. It's frankly irresponsible, and it's shocking to me that it's in there. I don't really have anything to say other than that I'm just puzzled that it's even being considered. So I would really ask you as council members to think whether you want to sign your names to that. If you want to amend it to say, yes, the lands that were signed over by this, that, and the other covenant should be returned, that's one thing. But to be on the hook for whatever works happen between now and whenever a judge hands down their decision, which could be 1 month, 2 months, 6 months, a year from now, that is too big of a poison pill for the district or any reasonable level of government to swallow. I just don't think it's advisable. Thank you.
Okay, so I think that concludes the remotely registered participants. Are there any in-chamber registered people that have signed or will sign? So, yeah, name and address for the record, please.
Rochelle Mandel, 6711 Alger Road. That explanation from the representative just leads me to feeling more frustration and confusion again with this process. This is just another example of poor transparency. Why would that clause be put in there if it wasn't going to be clarified and outlined as the other resident had pointed out? This council and staff need to do better for the residents. We shouldn't be walking away or reading the documents confused and wondering what is this going to cost us or what's the implications of this. There are legal ramifications to these decisions. Please do better.
Okay, I'm calling now for a second time for third time speakers. I will allow for a brief pause. And I'm calling for a third and final time for comments before this hearing is closed. So I do note that Ms. Abronson's hands.
Ruth Abramson would be the next speaker.
Okay.
Ruth Abramson, 7174 Sebastian Road. I think it's Mr. Henning representing the developer, and to have him say, don't worry about it, the district's lawyer wrote this clause really concerns me. It's up to the legal system, not lay people like me, to really understand what this clause actually means, but I can read it for those of you who might not have it in front of you. It does say, the section reads, should the zoning amendment bylaw be challenged and the zoning amendment bylaw in its entirety overturned by a court of competent jurisdiction prior to final approval of the first application for subdivision of the lands, the developer shall be entitled to recover any of the amenities provided under this agreement prior to final approval of the first application for subdivision of the lands. So I am not comforted by the words of Mr. Henning. I'm actually even more concerned. So I just wanted to note that.
Okay, and again, I have called for a third and final time for comments before I move to closing this hearing. So I'm not seeing anybody, or I don't believe anybody's registered. So I will allow for a brief pause. Okay, and at this point, after the close of this public hearing, council must not receive submissions from the public. And again, I am not seeing anybody who wishes to speak. So seeing that no one who wishes to speak, I declare the public hearing for District of Lantzville Phase Development Agreement Clark Med Bylaw number 282-2022 closed. For those of you who are watching, I don't want to move on to the next one quite yet. So are we good to go to the next one, Director Coates? Okay. All right, so for everybody's benefit, now we're on to basically 3B of the agenda. So again, at this point, we're switching to the District of Lantzville Phase Development Agreement Foothills Development Bylaw number 309-2022. Notice a public hearing was posted September 14th, and second reading was given on September 7th, 2022. And at this point, I will switch back to my script. And for those of you who are watching online via our live stream, please note that you can still join the Zoom webinar to speak to proposed bylaw 309 on tonight's agenda by going to lantzville.ca, clicking on September 28th in the calendar, click view details, and follow the instructions to register in the Zoom webinar link provided. I will now proceed to the public hearing for agenda item 3B. Councillor Wilson, I see.
Yeah, just point of privilege, just hoping that we can take maybe a 2-minute break, that's all.
So Councillor Wilson is calling for a 2-minute recess, just noting that the time is 7:21, so we'll resume in 2 minutes. Bylaw number 309, 2022. During this public hearing, any person in attendance who believes that their interest in property is affected by proposed bylaw 309 shall be given an opportunity to be heard on the matters contained in the proposed bylaw. However, it is important that all who speak at this hearing restrict their remarks to matters contained in the bylaw. Those of you who have registered to speak concerning the proposed bylaw should, at the appropriate time after your name is being called to speak, begin your comments by clearly stating your name and civic address. After this hearing is concluded, council may, without further notice, give whatever effect council believes proper to the representations made at this hearing. I will now call on the Director of Planning and Community Services, Mr. Frank Limshu, to speak to the proposed bylaw. So through to you, Director Limshu.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm just going to provide a bit of a brief context with respect to this bylaw. The bylaw pertains to the Foothills development, which consists of basically five parcels of land. Back in 2007, the subject lands were rezoned to allow for a master plan residential community, commonly referred to as Foothills. At the time of the rezoning, a development agreement was registered on title to ensure certain commitments were undertaken. The current zoning that's in place allows for up to 730 units. In 2014, the district entered into an MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, with the property owner, Lone Tree Properties, to outline general accepted principles for replacing the existing development agreement with a phased development agreement. Since that time, Lone Tree has applied to revise the existing Foothills Comprehensive Development Area designation and Comprehensive Development Zone to ensure that the proposed development and subdivision of the properties align with the proposed Foothills Special Area Plan. The purpose of the OCP plan, the zoning bylaw applications to support basically the conditions that were outlined in that MOU. It allows for 3 distinct neighborhoods with a combined total of 814 units. So the number of units would increase from 730 to 814. Both those bylaws are currently sitting at third reading. So there's previously a public hearing held for both the OCP amendment and the zoning bylaw. In conjunction with the rezoning applications, Lone Tree is now applying to enter into a phased development agreement. The phased development agreement, as mentioned, is consistent with the principles outlined in the MOU that I've indicated. And rather than entering into a Section 219 covenant for the amenities, the PDA outlines the amenities and the time in which the amenities are to be provided throughout the various phases of the development. And that those amenities are outlined in the staff report, as well as the actual phase development document. I think I'll just stop there for now. Effectively, should the bylaw be given third reading, it would now align with the OCP amendment bylaw as well as the zoning bylaw that's currently sitting at third reading. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. At this point, I will now call upon the applicant if they wish to speak to the phase development agreement, and you have up to 10 minutes. So if you can just state your name, civic address for the record, please.
Thank you, Your Worship, Mayor Swain, and District Councilors. I'm Edward Porter. Can you hear? Get a little closer. Thank you. I'm Edward Porter, Principal with Modus Planning, Design, and Engagement, speaking on behalf of Allard Okaloon, CEO of Lone Tree Properties Limited, the company that owns the Foothills. Allard is unable to attend this evening, but joining online, and his prepared remarks are as follows. After all this time to finally arrive at this day, it's frustrating for me to be held back from attending in person as a result of my being under COVID quarantine. Much has happened since we first started down this path in 2014 with the signing of the MOU, starting with construction in 2017, the development of reservoir, roads, and services, liberated over 120 new properties, and it's remarkable to see the rate of construction of new housing and the economic upside that this has already generated. Also, through the same subdivision work, we've been able to dedicate 730 acres of parkland to the district. Our work has remained consistent with the intent of the MOU. Along with the build-out of the needed infrastructure to service the foothills, we also completed a second reservoir to provide reserve water to the foothills, while at some point permitting storage for Nanaimo water to facilitate the plans that the district has with Nanaimo. This reservoir provides greater water security for our community of Lantzville and is now servicing 200 houses in the Winchelsea area. Along with the original parkland dedication, we've pushed an additional 200 acres of development zoned lands into park to allow for biodiversity without the sensitive areas being divided by development. We've committed to protecting Copley Mountain and Low Tree Mountain, the Hecla Creek Gorge, and the area known as the Upper Lookout. All of these areas will be dedicated as park, and the lands will be made as made public, a collective area no less than 1,100 acres. Other services might help support the recreational aspects of the area. For example, a bicycle repair shop, perhaps some overnight accommodation. There will be a trailhead parking area. There will be trailhead parking areas and a great deal of attention made about the access to those lands beyond for hiking, biking, climbing, what have you. The new zoning will address the need for housing diversity at the foothills that would appeal to a broader market, not just single-family view lots, but also townhomes and duplex properties, and a village that will service the neighborhood with appropriate services. We will build a community grocery store, a coffee shop, and maybe a pub or restaurant that has a deck overlooking the foothills lands with further views over Nanaimo and out to the water. This housing diversity allows for more than just that. Smaller footprint homes permit us to set them more efficiently in landscapes such as we see at the foothills. Clustering housing within a park and village setting means less paved surfaces, less impact on the environment, and more park dedication in and around living areas. Smaller homes and more diverse housing tends to generate less vehicle traffic in the community, and so our application was purposefully crafted to do just that. The PDA determines the timing for the items we need to finish now. The expansion of the reservoir, as well as a new traffic circle at Harwood and Ware, new parkland and district land dedication, a new right-of-way from Harwood to Vi Pond Road, and of course, the approximate $6 million in new amenities contributions for the district. I'm very proud of these achievements to date. I believe the development shows well, and that supporting the district programs as we have demonstrates our commitment to creating a stronger, more secure community. We've made a massive land dedication commitment to preserve these lands for all to use, and we've managed this development entirely in a fully self-sufficient manner and are today only contributing, not taking from the community. I thank your worship and councilors and staff for the extra consideration in granting special meetings to complete the task, and with your support this evening, we can look ahead and continue the work we started. Thank you.
Okay, so at this point, I will call for the first time persons registered remotely and in the council chamber who believe that their interest in property is affected by proposed bylaw 309. Please wait for your name to be called, and when it is your turn, state your full name and civic address. Staff will proceed through the remote registrant list first, and then through the gallery registrant list. When it is your turn, staff will call your name, and then you'll give us your input regarding the bylaw. You'll have up to 3 minutes to speak, and I will let speakers know when you have 30 seconds left and when your time is up. So through to Director Coates.
Yes, sorry, I don't see anyone with their hands up. The only person who applied indicating they wish to speak was James Dale, and he's not on the line anymore. So I don't think we have anybody remote. We do, however, in the room have Brian Blood.
Okay, so just name and address, please.
Brian Blood, 7075 Gillette Road. My journey with this project goes back even further. It goes back to 2002 when the, can you hear? Sorry. When the OCP steering committee was tasked with doing the initial negotiations with the first group, there have been some problems along the way. It's not perfect, but when you consider the amenity package, it's amazing. And it gives the district or the regional district, if they should be the custodians of the parklands, enough space to balance the recreational needs of Lantzville residents and beyond, as well as large areas of environmental protection. So I think on that basis alone, I would urge council to support this PDA. I have some concerns about the fire interface risk here that I know everybody's aware of, the developer, council, staff, and I would encourage that the designation for roadways in the future phases be coordinated with our fire department. I think there are some risks that were taken in phase one that shouldn't be repeated. Thank you.
And additional in chamber.
The next speaker in the chamber would be Hans Larson.
Name and address for the record, please.
Hans Larson, 7010 Owen Road. Mayor and Council, my spouse and I oppose council giving District of Lantzville Phased Development Agreement, Foothills Development Bylaw number 309, 2022, third reading for the following reasons. It is highly irresponsible or unusual for a council to contemplate giving a phased development agreement bylaw third reading mere weeks before a new council will be elected. The fact that these two phased development agreements are being taken to public hearing on the same night with a combined agenda of 305 pages almost guarantees that one of them will be given short shrift. In the current situation, that would be the foothills. So my comments will be brief. At the risk of repeating myself, such a significant decision on a legal agreement should be made by the council that will have to live with those consequences. We also have several concerns regarding the defining documents. There is no preliminary subdivision, PSR review, or proposed plan of subdivision included in the defining documents. Is this step then premature? I remember reading somewhere in the PDA in the legalese that there's a deadline of January 31st, 2023 for the agreement to be implemented. And so we have time to do this right. That would be 4 months from now when a new council has been elected. Thank you for your serious consideration of our input on this important matter.
And that concludes the in-person first-time speakers? Or we got one more? Well, yeah.
The form's actually here, sorry. Actually, just leave it there. Well, usually we bring it here when we start calling the speakers.
Hi, Rochelle Mandel, 6711 Alder Road. I hadn't intended on speaking to this proposal tonight, but I was...
Just gonna have to lean into the microphone a little bit, please.
Okay, did you get my name and address? Yes. That part? Okay. I just wanted to speak to one of the residents that I had a discussion with this past weekend. And one of their concerns, being a Foothills resident, was that their road allocation was a challenge, especially in the wintertime, stating that they had spent somewhere in the range of $20,000 for snow removal because of the narrow, thin roads in certain sections. So my only comment is to please, do your due diligence and make sure that these plans are really well thought out and that they aren't going to be costing residents in the end. Thank you.
Okay, at this point, I will call for the second time for persons registered remotely and in the council chamber who have new information to present and wish to speak again. So we can probably bypass the remotely registered folks because I don't think anybody has their hands up. And then for in chamber, is there anybody on the second time speakers list? And while we're checking that, I'll just keep reading. And if you wish to speak again via Zoom, please use the Zoom raise hand feature to indicate that you would like to speak. This function can be found in your webinar controls. If you're participating via telephone, the raise hand function can be activated by pressing *9 on your keypad. And again, if you're in the council chambers and wish to speak again, please sign the second speaker's opportunity list for bylaw 309 located on the table where I think Director Coates has maybe.
Sorry, no, there are no
There are none.
speakers in the
Okay,
building.
so I'll go through my script. So again, I will call for a third time, for persons registered remotely or in chamber. I'm not going to go through all the instructions. We'll just move on. Before I close this hearing, I ask if there is anyone else who is not registered remotely or in the council chamber that wishes to speak regarding bylaw number 309. If you wish to speak, we ask that you register now. So allow for a pause for that to happen if it's going to happen. I'm now calling for a second time. Calling for a third and final time for comments before this hearing is closed. After the close of this public hearing, council must not receive submissions from the public. Just allow for another little pause. Seeing no one who wishes to speak, I declare the public hearing for District of Lantzville Phase Development Agreement Foothills Development Bylaw number 309-2022 closed. That concludes our public hearings for this evening. Noting the time is 7:40, I'm calling now for a 5-minute recess. So we'll resume at 7:45.
relates to section 2101 of the phase development agreement. And I'm wondering if Director Lim Shu could first of all tell us, was there a considerable amount of legal advice given to the district regarding this particular article? And secondly, could you explain the rationale behind this article?
Your Worship, through the council, the document, the overall document itself, was vetted by our legal counsel. Certainly there were back and forth between our legal counsel and the counsel for the applicant. So to answer your question, yes, it was vetted by our legal counsel, not just that clause, but the entire document. With respect to the rationale for the section, I believe the applicant explained it fairly succinctly. As part of the agreement, and as I indicated in my presentation, the developers are obligated to provide a number of amenities right out of the gate before they can put shovel in the ground, so to speak, to start construction on any of the phases. And those three items are the provision of the 2 hectares or 5 acres, the provision of $50,000, and the dedication of the lands where the Alter Road Reservoir sits. So those amenities come to the district. The way the Section 21 reads, it basically says that in the event that the judicial review rules in favor or rules against the district, and the bylaws are overturned, and basically the project does not proceed. And the key here is prior to final approval of the first phase of subdivision, the developers will get their amenities back. So those amenities are those 3 items that I've indicated. Now, I think what I need to clarify for council is, in terms of the subdivision process, what happens is an applicant will make an application for subdivision. It's reviewed by staff. Staff prepares a PSR, preliminary subdivision review letter, which is attached to the phase development agreement. Within that letter, it outlines all the conditions that the applicants have to make or meet with respect to the subdivision. So that includes provisions of water, sewer, drainage, roads, park area. That PSR is basically approval in principle, if you will, provided that the applicant meets those conditions. The next stage is for the applicant to review that letter, provide detailed design drawings to meet all those servicing requirements. Those detailed design drawings are reviewed by staff and our consulting engineer. So for the district, that's Coors Engineering. Once everybody from the district side signs off and approves those detailed design drawings, at that point, the developer or the applicant can move forward with actually constructing all the infrastructure and ultimately creating the parcels for registration. So the installation of those services aren't the asset of the district. It doesn't become the asset of the district until such time that the subdivision is approved by the District of Lantzville. And the expectation at the time of registration is that all the infrastructure in the ground meets or exceeds our requirements, our development standard or specifications that's outlined in our subdivision development services bylaw. So to answer your point, or your question, if at any point in time the bylaws overturned before they get to final registration or approval, like I say, those assets, the 2 hectares, the money, and the dedication of the reservoir site, stay with the developer.
Supplementary? And conversely, if the final approval of the application is granted and construction is started and pipes are put in the ground, and lo and behold, this judicial review overturns the initial OCP and zoning, who loses all those amenities?
So once the district gives final approval to the first subdivision, those amenities become the district's.
So even if the judicial review overturns the initial OCP and rezoning bylaws for this subdivision, the district retains all of these amenities.
Exactly.
So it's really the developer who's got his neck out on the block on this, with respect to this particular article. Would you agree with me?
I would say yes, the risk is with the developer.
Okay. So if I might continue, in your experience, and you have a lot of experience as a planner, what amount of time do you anticipate it would take for this particular development, 250 units, to get your final approval of the first subdivision application? How much time do you think would elapse?
You're probably looking at least, best case scenario, probably 18 months. Because there's a lot of work that has to be done between now and then. So it's not just simply preparing a series of detailed design drawings. It's actually installing the services and making sure that those services meet our standards before we take over those assets. And we won't approve the subdivision until we're satisfied that that is the case.
So at least 18 months.
Yeah.
So if I can recapitulate what I think I've heard, there's really only three outcomes with respect to Article 2101. Those are that no prior subdivision approval is given by the district, and a judge says, sorry, we're going to overturn the OCP and rezoning. We go back to square one, basically, and the developer gets back his amenities.
Correct.
And the district doesn't pay any legal fees to the developer for that.
No.
There's no liability there. Is that correct?
I believe so.
Yeah. All right. I'm sorry, Chairman, I see people shaking their heads in the audience, and I find it unnerving, and it kind of gets me off my game here. So could you issue a warning that none of that should be taking place?
Okay, through to Councillor Gusberg. Sounds like you're calling a point of order.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know where you're looking right now, but our council meeting's in this direction. So you got your back turned to me? Through to the gallery, if you mind not making gestures towards council.
Thank you, Chair. So the second alternative is that the final approval is given for subdivision. Pipes are put in the ground, a lot of work is undertaken, a lot of money spent by the developer, and a judge comes along and says, I'm sorry, we're overturning that. In that case, the developer loses out. He doesn't get anything back.
That's correct.
Yeah. And the third alternative is that this hearing, which is now scheduled for November 1st to the 4th, gets discontinued. It goes away, it folds. And that's a possible alternative in this scenario as well. In which case, I assume the district would be asking for costs from the LCA before they would agree to discontinue the lawsuit. Is that your understanding?
I would say yes, that's correct.
All right, thank you. I'll save my further comments for later.
All right, so through to the seconder, Councillor Proctor, and then I'll open it to the rest of the council.
I have some questions. I'm trying to wrap my head around this. I did do my due diligence before the meeting, but I do still have some questions. And also, I would like everyone to know that I'm recovering from COVID, and I reserve the right to turn my camera off if I need to cough or sneeze or otherwise do something that would be grossly more unfavorable than applying lip gloss that seems to bother some people sometimes. So I have a question through you to staff. If something happens with this lawsuit and the developer gets the Olds Road reservoir back, do we have a contingency plan? Like, I depend on that reservoir to drink water every day. What will happen in that case?
Your worship, through the council, it would be business as usual because currently we don't own that property, and it's providing a service. The whole point of us securing that land is so that we own the property that the reservoir sits on.
So business as usual is that I'm drinking water from a reservoir on borrowed land.
Correct.
And could they just take that land back if they wanted one day?
Well, they own the
I don't
land.
know why they
They
would.
currently own the land.
Well, that puts the district in an interesting position, doesn't it?
Well, not necessarily. There are other examples where municipalities don't necessarily own the land in which their infrastructure sits on. In an ideal world, you, as a municipality or local government, you want to own the land in which your asset is currently sitting on. Having said that, certainly you can look at registering, having statutory right-of-ways over lands to provide access to infrastructure. And, those infrastructures operate and, no one knows the difference.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, I think I have some questions because I need to clarify this process in my mind. The line now I've lost it on my tablet, I'm sorry. But the line that says prior to final approval of the first application, I have some questions about the approval of the first application, the process. Do the pipes and the roads and the infrastructure actually have to be in the ground and the engineers check them before you get final approval of the first application?
That's correct.
So that is a considerable length of time down the road.
That's correct. And that's why when I was asked a question about timing, our estimation is approximately 18 months. Because of the installation of the services.
Because it's my understanding they have provided some detailed drawings to date. Have they not? Or
That's correct.
okay, I think I understand the process. There's been a lot of emotional confusion this evening, and I'm trying to sort through it with my COVID fog as best I can. I'll probably have some more questions later. Thank you.
Okay, through to the rest of the council this time. First time speaker, so go ahead, Councillor Savage.
Yes, this is why I love resident input. The collective intelligence of the community is far smarter than me. And if anything comes up in public hearings, that's why I do not like third readings or any decisions after a public hearing. I want time to vet things and to judge things, digest things. So we have a problem here. I've heard from people, and I do not want the answers tonight. I want time to vet them. I don't vote on things, major things, until I've thoroughly vetted and am convinced that I have enough research and knowledge on it to vote wisely. So we've now got the DCCs being brought up, calculated incorrectly, and are the current rates locked in all phases as opposed to just the 1-year grace period for a bylaw if new DCC rates are introduced. And we've got amendment packages or amenity packages apparently described differently. There was mention of the preliminary subdivision review in some versions, not in others. There was 13.1B, reflective of current DCCs. That's one thing I really want to find out for myself. Are they done accurately? Once we adopt this, which is proposed tonight, then we're locked in, period. Lot 87 can't find it. 286s can be found. Now, this is one that really concerns me, is the sewer extensions seem to be different in different versions of either the covenant or the DPA. And one apparently shows it going further around Alger Road than another. That's something I thoroughly want to vet, and all this might be fine, but I have to convince myself. I don't want to hear about it on the fly tonight and think of other things I could have checked. I want all this checked thoroughly before I vote on it. There was reference to a J or a K being incorrect. So in my mind, the PDA, the Phase Development Agreement, and the covenant of the first and second reading has to be identical to the one going to public hearing unless council has changed it. And council's not been informed of any changes whatsoever. And the reason for that is you can't change agreements without telling anyone at different phases of a process. All the agreement has to be identical unless changed by council. So this has to be discovered, and if there are differences, it just means the public hearing has to be redone. And I know through this whole process there's been things that, and then also this reference to 280 units versus 250. I like that tidied up in writing. And I remember going back to May 11th, 2020, that there was a mistake done in a staff report that has never been corrected in writing. So I just want to make sure at this point that it's done so. So I would make the motion that this motion be postponed until the next council meeting of October 2nd, 2022. October 3rd, 2022.
So through to Councillor Savage, is your intent just to postpone this so you do your own research? I'm just trying to wonder if this is the correct motion to be made or if it's a referral with instruction for staff. Because postponing just means this gets pushed off to the next meeting and
that's a good
nothing
point.
happens, but it's
That's a good
up to
point.
you.
Thank you. I changed then my motion to referring this motion to the October 3rd, 2022 council meeting, and further that staff be instructed to clarify the items brought up tonight so that council can be assured that we are receiving the final PDA and covenant which match.
Okay, Councillor Savage, you're going to have to slow down because Director Coates is trying to write all this down.
I was trying to. So it's in further that staff.
Clarify in writing that the PDA and covenant were being presented at the next meeting perfectly matches the original first and second reading covenant and PDA. And that,
at the beginning, you made a statement, something to the effect that addressing the issues brought up tonight, and that was the point I was going to say. It's a bit too generic. We need to know specifically, so it's back to, and further that staff clarify in writing that the PDA and covenant matches first and second reading covenant and PDA.
and that there are no mistakes in the PDA or covenant.
Okay, you got it. All right, so looking for a seconder. Okay, I will second it. Go ahead, Councillor Savage.
Yes, thank you. This is just sincerely, I want to know about these things. I trust a good part of what I heard tonight, and I just simply have not had a chance to vet these things. When I thoroughly went through the first PDA when it came out at the time of first and second reading, and there's a reason why you don't reread the PDA and covenant when it comes out in the next agenda of the next phase, be it a public hearing or third reading, because it's supposed to be identical unless you've been informed that there's been changes made. And the second reason is these appears some mistakes have been brought up, especially of concern of the DCCs and so on. And I want to ensure that everything is fine, is appropriate, is how it should be, and there are no mistakes. And it may turn out that that's the case, but I have to find this out. It's part of listening to residents at a public hearing. It just seems more appropriate as well on such a big matter that we reflect upon it, do our own research and vetting. Staff helps us, and that it's a short time. It's only 10 days until the next council meeting. It's on a Monday, so it's only 10 days from now. It's not much of a delay at all, but it's important. This is a forever matter. Once we approve it, it's a done thing.
Clarification, Councillor Savage, the next meeting is Monday, so like 5 days. Yeah, just so I think that's my quick math.
Thank you. So that's even less of a delay, 5 days. Thank you.
So as the seconder, I'll just speak to this. I had lots to say even about before I went to referral motion. However, I agree with what I'm hearing in the sense that it'd be nice to clear up any of these, what I would say alleged claims of errors within the reports and so forth. I try to go through this stuff as diligently as I possibly can. And, one example I'll give council is correspondence received from Mr. Colson. And there's a reference under point 2 with respect to a page number. So it says the staff report dated September 7th on page 60 of the September 28th, 2022 special meeting, whatever. So it makes a reference to the error about there being 280 units and where it should be 250, but that page number is actually wrong. It's page 61. So, I take the time to go through and look at the claims that are made. I heard a lot of concerns this evening, and, whether, they're accurate or not, it needs to be determined. And again, there's some concerns, obviously have been raised this evening about, 21.1 of the phase development agreement, or 01, sorry, of the phase development agreement. and you know, I'm not necessarily speaking directly to the referral, but well, sort of. But you know, I believe there's an error even within there. There's a reference to section 33, whereas when you go to section 33, and maybe this isn't an error, but by my analysis, I think it is. It's referencing the wrong thing. It should be 32. And that's in the phase development agreement. So I don't know if staff's actually looked at that or has considered that, but, or maybe it's correct, I don't know, but it doesn't make sense that section 33 is referenced. In my opinion, I think it's section 32. You know, and again, there's been lots of concerns raised about some of the accuracy and even just the different reports or PDAs that we're getting. And the interesting thing is when we look at the one in our agenda package for this evening, I think council's probably had enough of these by now to recognize that the PDA is actually a 55-page document. And you know, and then if you go further or deeper into the agenda, then there's the next one, which is not 55 pages. So there's things, and I understand, you know, where the concerns lie with residents and participating in this public hearing. Our duty is to listen, but also to do something with what we're hearing, and not just ignore it and just simply move on and pass third reading. If there's concerns, we should be dealing with it. And because I haven't had a chance, and if someone wants a point of order, me, fine, but I will speak to this real briefly. I would, you know, with the reference in there about in 21.01 with respect to any of the amenities provided, why not just simply explicitly state what the 3 amenities are and take the guesswork out of it, just as feedback? I don't understand. And I did have a question about the phase development document creation, and actually who. So my question has to do with who actually authored it. My understanding is that the District of Lantzville lawyers authored it, not vetted it, but authored it, and the opposing council, or I guess or not opposing, sorry, the council representing village, the Lantzville projects would have vetted it, and there would have been a to and fro. So who actually authored it through the staff?
The template was prepared by our lawyers.
Okay. So I wanted to clear that up because I heard earlier that we vetted it, not authored it. So I just wanted to make sure I heard that correctly. And we clarified that. So I think there's enough concern here that, and again, this isn't to kill anything or delay anything. If staff feels that they would have enough time to go back and listen, I know staff has to do this anyways. They have to go back and summarize all the input that we've received this evening and compare that against what's in the phase development agreement and all the materials that have been provided. I think that would be highly appropriate. But just simply to move forward as it stands now with some questions around process and content, that does concern me. So through to Director Coates.
So I guess I'm hearing 2 things. One was that they wanted, the motion on the floor was to have staff clarify in writing that the PDA and covenant match the first and second reading covenant and PDA, and that there are no mistakes in the PDA or covenant. But what I'm hearing now from your comments is that you would like staff to go through the notes from tonight or through the recording, and from that itemize something and speak to that in the report. And just so we all remember, the meeting is on Monday. The agenda goes out tomorrow.
Yeah, I understand that. So, which, you know, again, through the staff, if we need to schedule another special meeting to deal with that, I'm totally open to that, because I realize it's going to be difficult for staff to attend to such a request, because it does take time to transcribe.
And I'm just suggesting that you'd need to amend the motion on the floor.
Yeah, I
because
understand.
it doesn't currently say that we're going to in some way do a list from the speakers.
Okay, so first-time speakers, and then we'll move it around the horn. Okay, noting there's no other first-time speakers. Go ahead, Councillor Gilsbrock. Oh, Councillor Wilson's now signaling. So go ahead, Councillor Wilson, as a first-time speaker.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Sure can, yeah.
Okay. Just, I I heard that, staff will take them, obviously. It's to postpone this meeting or to be able to get all this done for Monday. I guess maybe I just want to pose the question to Director Limshu. Is that even possible for you to address the discrepancies within the document? I mean, certain page numbers, referring to wrong page numbers, the typo of the 280 to the 250, the mystery dual lot 87. Are those things, are they those major things or minor things that you think that you could address tomorrow before the Monday agenda goes out?
I don't think I can give you a definitive answer on that. I mean, certainly as staff, we'll try our best to address all those issues, review the document, review the minutes, provide an update. The reality is, I just remember, Friday is a stat holiday as well, so we're 1 day short. So really and truly, we're having to do this tomorrow.
And there will be no minutes tomorrow. Guaranteed.
Yeah.
Okay, so Councillor Wilson, are there any follow-ups or?
Well, I guess then do you just plan a special meeting then is maybe the next question.
Yes, that'd be correct. If staff can't attend to or can't make this happen for Monday, which is a pretty tall order, then council and even I would have no issue with calling the meeting myself. It's just, this is about following, in my opinion, due process. So I don't know, do you have any further follow-up?
Are you talking to me or to staff?
To you.
Oh, yeah. No other follow-up. I mean, to me, these things that Councillor Salvage brought up, they seem like they're just dotting the I's and crossing the T's for the most part. I heard the concerns tonight regarding 21.01. I am satisfied with hearing what Director Limshu said with respect to the questions that Councillor Gesselbrecht was asking. To me, this is just a simple, like not simple, but just let's just dot the I's, cross the T's, and make sure that page numbers refer to the specific areas within the document that they should be, and that the density is not 280, that it's 250. Yeah, just confirming those details up. That's all.
Okay, so Councillor Gesselbrecht, go ahead.
Thank you. No, I can't support this motion. In reality, this has been in the cooker for 2 years, since November 2nd when it was adopted, and when first and second reading were passed September 25th. So no, I can't support this, but I have a question through to staff. My question to Director Limshu is, were not the inconsistencies, the changes set out in the agenda of September the 7th at pages 116 to 118?
That's correct. There were amendments made at that meeting. Staff identified a couple changes. There was a section that was blank, and so we basically updated the document to take that section out, which realigned the numbering for that section of the document. We also had some wording changes with one of the schedules. I think it's the schedule related to the extension of the water and sewer lines along the Clark Road corridor. And so those changes, like I say, would have modified the document, because the numbering, the formatting would have had to have been adjusted accordingly.
And that was
Sorry,
done.
I'm just going to call a point of clarification. So I believe the question had to do with inconsistencies, but I believe what you're referring to, Director Limshu, are corrections. So it's not like there was inconsistencies between different documents. It was just corrections that were made to the original. Is that correct? Okay, thank you. So go ahead, Councillor Gesselbrecht.
All right. So are you confident that the document that we have here tonight, that's in the agenda, the phase development agreement for Clark Med is the final document, and that it clearly details all the elements that is needed for this phase development.
The document that's in the council agenda from pages 9 through to, from pages 7 through to 59 is the correct document.
And follow up, I heard at this table that there is a concern that the covenant is identical to the phase development agreement, but that's not correct, is it? I mean, that's the whole point of this meeting and motion, is that we're substituting the phase development agreement by consent of both parties, if it passes, with the Section 219 covenant that was placed on title after we approved the rezoning in OCP. Is that correct?
That's correct. There is a difference between the existing 219 covenant and the current PDA. It's before council.
And what's identical are that the amenities that were mentioned in the covenant are the same that are in the phase development agreement.
That's correct. The amenities package is identical.
And the phase development agreement has to have additional articles because of, let's say, Section 2101 to protect the district in the event of an adverse decision. That is all by agreement between the parties, consulting with their lawyers, and many months of back and forth between the district and Lantzville projects. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right.
Okay, so I have Councillor Savage and then Councillor Wilson.
Yes, I'd like to make an amendment to my amendment, please, and that is to strike council meeting on October 3rd and inserting a special meeting, the date of which determined by staff.
Point of order.
What's your point of order?
Can we make an amendment to the amendment?
I think it's in order.
I'm just going to the procedure bylaw because I do believe that you have something in there now that says you can only do one.
Yeah, you're allowed one amendment.
That is correct.
And
To
so
the
you're on an amendment.
okay, so
Oh, no, you're not on an amendment. You're on a referral.
yeah, referral motion. That's correct. So we're actually on a referral motion. So, which I don't think we can. Well, we can change time and date. I think that's about it. And or we could strike it down and then do another amendment or a referral motion. So what's your will, Councillor Gus or Councillor Savage?
I can amend the time. We've done that 100 times this council term where we decide that might be a better date instead of referring it to one date. That's all we're doing.
So yeah, what's your proposal for change of
My
date?
proposal is simply to change the date of council meeting, October 3rd, to a special meeting, the date of which to be determined by staff.
So through to Director Coates, would that be in order? As our parliamentarian, just to simply change the date and do that through
No, Your Worship, it shouldn't be at the date determined by staff. It should be the date determined by council.
well, through to CEO Campbell, I totally respect what you're saying. It's just right now we don't know how long it's going to take staff to potentially complete what's being asked, and what the turnaround time would be. Like I said earlier, I have no issue as mayor calling a special meeting and make myself available at over the next week or so, or however long it takes staff to get it done. So maybe I think what the maybe the amend or the referral motion could be is just to refer it back to staff and then to notify the mayor of, you know, when it is complete, so the mayor can then call a special meeting. I don't know if that works.
I guess one of the challenges right now is if you don't make it a definitive motion to say what date, it's very challenging right now to get a date that council, like anytime we try to schedule a meeting, it takes several rounds to get a date. And that's just life. And right now, we have advance voting on the 5th, advance voting on the 12th. We have a Thanksgiving on the 10th, and the meeting's on the 3rd. So that left us with the 4th, the 6th, unless you want to do something on a weekend, on a long weekend. I would not think so. Then you're looking at, I don't know,
Well, there's, I think, the 23rd, isn't there, of October?
that's a Sunday.
Oh, sorry, whatever the next, that, we do have another, it's 26th then? I can't remember.
26th is the next regular
Yeah,
meeting.
so do you just want to refer it to the next council meeting, Councillor Savage?
Well, in order to get council support, I could either be October 26th or October 11th special meeting.
Okay, so through to council, I know we're just batting around the potential date. So I don't know if there's anybody that cannot be available in the next 10 to 14 days.
I'm not available the week after Thanksgiving.
Okay.
And I would not vote to delay this until the 26th.
So through to staff, would next Friday work? That'd be October 7th, I think.
Some people are taking long weekends. So there's people that won't be here on the 7th.
Or October
We could try
6th.
for the 6th, but
October 6th.
again, that's if you're not expecting us to go through, like if it's about what's in the motion, not about this, the new thing you were talking about of making a list from comments, because we won't have, you know, we're in the middle of doing voting.
Oh, I understand
We're
that, and
very busy
there's-
with voting,
yeah.
and we have advance voting on the 5th, so like, it would be all we can do to get the agenda out and be here for the 6th.
Okay. All right, so Councillor Proctor, I see your hands being up, and then go to Councillor Gusselbrook.
I just had something to say after we've settled the date. We've spent an awful lot of time talking about deferring this and not talking about the motion. I don't have anything to add at this time.
So Councillor Gusselbrook?
Yeah, and in my opinion, we've wasted a half an hour when the issue is the referral motion. And so at this point, I'm asking to call the question on the referral motion that's on the floor.
Okay, so the question's
Sorry,
been called.
I had that there was a motion to amend the referral motion, but I didn't have a seconder.
No, there wasn't a seconder because
Okay, thank you.
we're thinking that was out of order. So we didn't bother. All right, so the question's being called on a referral motion. Doesn't mean another motion can't be made. So I'll simply just go to calling the question. Does anybody need it read back with the referral?
Please read it back to me.
So through to Director Coates.
That the motion on the floor be postponed to the October 3rd, 2022 council meeting, and further that staff clarify in writing that the PDA and covenant matches the first and second reading covenant and PDA, and that there are no mistakes in the PDA or covenant.
Okay.
Okay, and as a point of order, please.
What's your point of order?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, please. There's an amendment on the floor.
It's not on the floor because it wasn't seconded.
Okay.
So we could say technically it was lost due to lack of
Yeah,
seconder.
I was waiting for it to be seconded, and so.
Okay,
is
so
it
we'll
being-
just say it's lost because it was never seconded. So unless you have something further, I think the question has been called. We can vote on whether or not to call the question. Actually, I would like to just make a real brief comment. I can support the motion as is because I'll simply just do the homework myself and come with my own analysis, and I'll back it up with basically what I've heard tonight. So I don't need staff to do it. I'll do it myself, and I'd encourage all members of council to do it. So I'm satisfied with the referral motion as is, and it just means I'll have to do more work. So fine by me. Unless there's anything further, I'll move to calling the question. Okay, I'm going to call the question, and all those in favor and opposed. Okay, I'm going to do a recount on that. So if you can just hold your hands up for all those in favor and opposed. So noting Councillor Proctor and Councillor Gusbrecht are opposed.
I'm sorry, I voted for that.
Oh,
I had
okay.
my hand up when Councillor Wilson had his up.
Well, there's a bit of a lag between the two screens, if you can believe it. So anyways, so that's carried, noting that, I guess.
I'm asking that vote be retaken because I saw 3 hands go up opposing.
Okay, so let's do it again. If you can just hold your hands up. All those in favor? Okay, noting that Councillor Wilson, Councillor Proctor, Councillor Savage, Mayor Swain in favor and opposed. Noting that Councillor Gusbrecht is opposed, carries. It's been referred. All right, so that takes us on to our next item in our agenda. So that basically takes us down to item 4B. Someone prepared to make that motion? Go ahead, Councillor Savage.
That District of Lantzville Official Community Plan Bylaw number 150, 2019 amendment, Foothills Special Area Plan, Bylaw number 279, 2021, be adopted.
Okay. Do we have a seconder to that? Second by Councillor Wilson, and it's adoption, so we'll just move to calling the question. All those in favor?
I'm sorry, could the motion be read again?
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Savage, if you can read the motion.
That District of Lantzville Official Community Plan, Bylaw number 150, 2019, amendment, Foothills Special Area Plan, Bylaw number 279, 2021, be adopted.
And that was seconded by Councillor Wilson. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor and opposed, that is carried unanimously. All right, so that takes us on to the next item. So that's 4B, and that's regarding bylaw number 309. Someone prepared to make that motion?
Sorry, it should be number C, bylaw number
sorry,
280.
My apologies. I'm in denial for reading glasses, so. Yeah. So bylaw number 280, yeah, the zoning bylaw. So someone prepared to make that motion? Go ahead, Councillor Sapp.
Yes, that District of Lantzville zoning bylaw number 180, 2020, amendment Foothills Comprehensive Development Zone, bylaw number 280, 2021, be adopted.
And do we have a seconder to this item? Seconded by Mayor Swain. And again, we're at adoption, so I'll just simply call the question. All those in favor and opposed? And that looks like that was carried unanimously as well. Now we're on to item 4D. So bylaw number 309. Someone prepared to make that motion? So go ahead, Councillor Savage.
That District of Lantzville Phase Development Agreement, Foothills Development, bylaw number 309, 2022, be given third reading.
Okay, is someone prepared? Oh, Councillor Wilson seconding. Discussion on third reading. So through to the mover and then to the seconder.
Yes, thank you. Just first of all, to speak to the process item, while I do disagree on having two major or having two public hearings on two major topics on the same night. And my usual principle is to wait till the next meeting before voting on it and so on. In this particular circumstance, because I've followed this so closely for the past few years, the MOU, the original covenant, and so on, and have followed all the interplay between staff, the community, and the Foothills group, and the fact that there's been no, which is very rare indeed, been no opposition to the substance of the Foothills proposal, and that they've been delayed so much by competing applications that I'm very comfortable passing third reading tonight. I carefully read their PDA when they went to first and second reading, and I haven't heard any opposition to the actual content of the phase development agreement. That I'm confident I have enough knowledge. I don't have any new information to digest, so that's why I think it's appropriate that it's not a problem going to third reading tonight, because it reflects the phasing, and we've already dealt with the zoning and the OCP amendment as well. But I just wanted to take note at the UBCM at Whistler. I chatted with Premier Horgan, and one of the topics I brought up was the Foothills development and how the artisan Hecala Creek Village especially could be a model for village centers and approaches to development in the future across BC. So the details of how we can do it, we can leave for another day, but it's important to know how many developments reach the Premier's ear as an example of how to do it. Not many, I dare say. So just another feather in the cap of really what's went on here is that when you have a template of working together, listening to the community and moving ahead more like a partnership, it makes for a strong foundation. So that's the key to this. And moving ahead, it has the potential to be a masterpiece. Also up at Whistler, I took note of the great walking areas, cycling areas, and how they very cleverly integrated the surrounding green space with the village itself. They've pulled it right into the village in spots, and it makes it easy to get to. So I most look forward to it, so I'm fully in support of this. Thank you.
And through the seconder, Councillor Wilson, and then I'll open up to the rest of the council.
Nothing to add.
Okay, and through the rest of the council. Okay, I'll just speak briefly to this. It's obviously we're at third reading, so that's why we're speaking to it and debating it. There's not really much debate to be had here. I'm not hearing any at all, actually. So I think it speaks to the process that's being followed with this specific application. It's been a long time coming. I've heard about this development over 20, I think it was about 20 years ago. So know about the initial bridge being built up there. As my brother-in-law, he was an engineering student and helped build the bridge going into the foothills. So being aware of that development for a very, very long time. And this is really coming full circle now, and we're really excited about what to see. And we have learned that in 2024, the ground will break once again up there for the next phase, and that's exciting. So there's lots of exciting things that will be happening up there, and looking forward to seeing where that evolves, as well as the adjoining 1,100 acres of parkland and how that's going to evolve over time and kind of work into that development and surrounding areas. So it's going to be, I think, a real exciting time for Lantzville over the next 10 years once they start breaking ground, and yeah, it'll be cool, I think, and up in Whistler as well. You know, they experienced a bit of a wildlife encounter walking down, in the village, and there's a big black bear. So, anyways, there'll be lots of excitement up there. And again, this is a long time coming, and I'm sure the development proponent here is excited to hear this going through. So, without any further ado, I'll move to calling the question unless there's any further comments. Okay, so Councillor Proctor, did you want to speak?
I would actually like to leave the meeting because I don't feel very well, so I was anxiously voting.
Oh, okay, so I'll just move to calling the question. All those in favor and opposed? I believe that's carried unanimously. And that takes us on to the next motion. If you go ahead, Councillor Savage.
That District of Lantzville Phase Development Agreement, Foothills Development Bylaw number 309-2022 be adopted.
And do we have a seconder to that? So seconded by Mayor Swain, and we're at adoption, so I'll just simply call the question. All those in favor and opposed? That's carried unanimously. And that concludes our agenda, so I declare the meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.